My wife emptied our bank account while I was unconscious in the hospital. When I finally checked my phone, there was one message from her. No greeting, no concern, just a screenshot showing our joint account with a balance of exactly zero. Underneath, she'd typed, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." I stared at that message for a long time. When I finally replied, all I could manage was a single thumbs up emoji. I didn't go home when I was discharged the next day. My name's Cameron Doyle. I'm 45 years old and have spent the last 22 of those years behind the wheel of a semi-truck. It's not a glamorous job, but it paid the bills. It kept the lights on, food on the table, and my wife Dana living the comfortable life she always acted like she was owed, but never seemed to appreciate. For weeks, I'd been feeling this tightness in my chest. Brushed it off as stress, blamed the long hours, the lack of sleep, the bad coffee, and worse food from roadside diners. I told myself I'd get it checked out eventually. Until one day, just outside Omaha, the pain hit so hard I had to pull over on the side of the highway. I called 911 myself. They ended up airlifting me to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Turns out it wasn't stress or a panic attack. My heart was failing. I remember the doctor leaning over me, her face tight with urgency, just before everything went black. "We're losing him," she said. "Let me tell you, that's not the kind of thing you ever want to hear before slipping into unconsciousness." When I woke up 2 days later, I was hooked up to machines with tubes in my arms and a stent in my chest. The nurse told me I'd flatlined twice. She said I was lucky to be alive. But I didn't feel lucky. Not when I picked up my phone and saw that message. After 15 years of marriage, no kids, just a mortgage in Sioux Falls and a life built on quiet routines while I spent more time on the road than at home. That was all she had to say. One message. One clean wipe of our bank account. And a cold declaration that she deserved it. $61,438.72. That was the number staring back at me. Gone. My emergency fund, my truck maintenance account, my retirement cushion, everything I'd scraped together over 2 decades on the road, wiped out in one move. I should have been furious. I should have felt something close to rage, but instead, I just felt tired. Not the kind of tired a nap could fix. This was bone deep, soul deep. I sent her that thumbs up emoji, just that. Nothing more, nothing left to say. Later that day, the doctor came in, all calm professionalism. He told me I needed rest, no stress, and absolutely no driving for at least 6 weeks. "You have someone picking you up tomorrow?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied without blinking. That night, I called my brother Jeff. He lived on the other side of town. We hadn't talked in a while, not because of any bad blood, just different lives moving in different directions. "Need a favor," I said. "Name it," he answered, no hesitation. "I need a place to crash for a few days, and I need you not to tell Dana." There was a pause. "She doesn't know you're alive?" "Oh, she knows," I said. "She just doesn't know I'm not coming home." I met Dana outside a gas station in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She was stranded with a flat tire, and I happened to be the guy who stopped to help. Back then, she looked at me like I was some kind of hero just because I knew how to work a jack. Funny how that works. The things that impress people in the beginning, those same things become expectations later. Invisible. Taken for granted. We got married 6 months after that. It was quick, yeah, but not reckless. I was 30, she was 27, old enough to know better, young enough to still believe in forever. She never liked the fact that I was gone 3 weeks out of every 4, but she liked the money, liked what it bought. I used to call her every night from whatever state I was passing through. Sometimes we'd talk for an hour, just laughing and sharing our days, but over the years those conversations got shorter. 5 minutes of updates. Then it turned into just checking in. Lately it was mostly just texts. Made it to Nashville. "Everything's good here." That's what Dana would text when I checked in. Looking back now, I see the signs I missed. She'd stopped asking when I'd be home. Started taking trips with friends I'd never met or even heard of. But I trusted her. That's what marriage is supposed to be, right? Trust. My brother Jeff helped me into the guest room at his place. He's a construction foreman, works local jobs, been divorced twice. If anyone knows how people can disappoint you, it's him. "You should eat something," he said. But I wasn't hungry. My mind was somewhere else. On the house I'd bought, on the refinancing I'd done just 3 months back, when interest rates dropped. Dana had said she was too busy to come to the signing, so I handled it myself. Put everything in my name since my credit score was better anyway. She never even asked to see the papers. Then there was the medical power of attorney I set up last year. That had been a wake-up call, watching my buddy Tim suffer a stroke and seeing his girlfriend powerless to help with any decisions. I didn't want to end up like that. My niece Megan, Jeff's daughter, helped me sort it out. She's a law student, sharp as hell. Made sure every form was airtight. "Does Dana know you're here?" Jeff asked as he handed me a sandwich. "No," I said. "And we're going to keep it that way for a bit." "She took everything?" I nodded. What are you going to do? I took a bite of the sandwich. Couldn't taste a thing. Get some rest, I said. Doctor's orders. But that night, I didn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, piecing everything together. Moments I'd brushed off, things that didn't quite sit right at the time. Dana, always checking her phone under the dinner table. Her password suddenly changing, telling me she was moving money around for better interest rates. I hadn't wanted to see it, but now I couldn't unsee it. On my third day at Jeff's, I got a text from our neighbor Harold. Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Dana's got some guy over. Thought you should know. I didn't reply. Just sat there with it. Let it sink in like cold water spreading through my chest. Later that day, Jeff drove me downtown, not to our usual bank branch, where the tellers knew Dana and me by name, but to the main office. I asked to speak with a fraud specialist, sat across from a woman in a crisp blazer, and showed her the message Dana had sent, the one with the screenshot of our drained account. Explained how I'd been unconscious in the hospital, unable to give any kind of consent for those withdrawals. She kept her face professionally blank, but I caught something behind her eyes. A flicker of pity, maybe even a little anger, not just for what had happened, but for the fact that someone like me had to come in and say it out loud. Mr. Doyle, we can open a fraud investigation, the woman at the bank said carefully. But since it's a joint account and your wife had equal access to the funds, it may be difficult to… I understand. I cut in gently, but I'd still like to try. She gave a small nod and turned to her computer, fingers moving across the keyboard. We'll need medical records from the hospital, confirmation of your stay, especially documentation showing when you were unconscious or otherwise incapacitated. Not a problem, I said. And you should know, she added, glancing up at me, if this progresses into a criminal matter, law enforcement will get involved. I met her eyes. I'm aware. On the drive back to Jeff's place, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the passenger seat while he went to pump. Through the windshield, I watched a man walking out of the convenience store with two kids, each holding a dripping cone of ice cream. Just a regular moment from a normal life, moving forward all around me like I wasn't even there. Want anything? Jeff called over. I shook my head. Back at the house, I made 3 phone calls. First to my dispatcher. I told him I needed to take an extended medical leave. Second, to the credit union where I kept a small business account for my independent hauls. And third, to a lawyer friend of Jeff's. I need to know where I stand, I said when Blake, the lawyer, picked up. With the house, with the accounts, with everything? He agreed to meet the next day. After I hung up, I pulled out my laptop, logged into the accounts Dana didn't know about. Not secret accounts, just ones she never asked about. Investments I'd set up for retirement, backup funds I'd built slowly over the years, not because I didn't trust her, but because she'd never shown much interest in the parts of life that didn't come with instant gratification. As I reviewed the numbers, a new text came in. From Dana. Where are you? Your truck isn't at the depot. Did they tell you I came by? I didn't answer. A few minutes later, another one. Cameron, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about this. I put the phone down. Jeff looked over from the kitchen. She reaching out? He asked. Yeah. You going to respond? I closed the laptop slowly. Not yet. That night, I took a walk around Jeff's neighborhood. It was a clear evening, crisp and still. The stars managed to push through the haze of city lights, scattered across the sky like old memories. For the first time since I collapsed on the side of that highway, my chest didn't hurt. At least not physically. And somewhere during that walk, it hit me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was just done. And with that came clarity. Dana hadn't just taken my money. She'd given me something else, my freedom. A week after being discharged, I finally went back to the house. I waited until midday, knowing Dana would be at her office job. Used my key. Walked in like I was just getting home from another long haul. The house didn't smell like home anymore. There was cologne in the air. Definitely not mine. The recycling bin was full of empty wine bottles, 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher. I didn't stay long. Packed up a couple changes of clothes, grabbed my important papers, and took the small lockbox from the closet. My birth certificate, passport, that kind of thing. As I was walking out, I noticed something missing from the hallway table. Our wedding photo. The frame that had been there for 15 years. Gone. Back at Jeff's place, I sat down with Blake, the lawyer. We took over the kitchen table, papers spread out between us. The house situation is interesting, he said, scanning the refinance paperwork. Since it's solely in your name now, and considering the medical clause we included, plus your recent cardiac event, you have a strong argument for sole possession. What about the money she took? I asked. Blake's brow furrowed. That's a bit more complicated. Joint accounts generally mean joint ownership. He tapped a finger against the stack of bank statements. But the fact that she emptied the account while you were medically incapacitated, that could meet the criteria for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, especially if you can show the money came primarily from your earnings. I nodded slowly. And if I want a divorce? South Dakota's an equitable distribution state, he said. But given the circumstances, I think we've got a very compelling case for an arrangement in your favor. He started gathering the paperwork into a neat stack. I'll begin drafting the documents. In the meantime, don't reach out to her. Don't respond if she contacts you. Everything goes through me now. The very next day, Dana showed up at Jeff's. I was alone. Jeff had left for work a couple hours earlier. I heard her car pull into the driveway, but I didn't move. Didn't look out the window. The doorbell rang 3 times. Then came the knocking. "I know you're in there, Cameron," she called. "Your truck is parked down the street." Her voice came through the door, muffled but sharp. "You can't just hide. We need to talk about this." I sat in the living room, perfectly still, like a kid playing hide and seek, hoping silence would be enough to make me invisible. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I thought she'd finally left. Then my phone buzzed. "I'm sorry about the money. I was angry. You've been distant for months. I thought you were cheating. I found out about the house refinancing and panicked. We can work this out. Please talk to me." Cheating. That was new. In all our years together, she'd never accused me of that, not once. It felt like projection, like maybe she needed a reason to justify what she'd done, and inventing one was easier than facing the truth. I didn't respond. Just turned the phone over, face down, and let the silence speak for me. The next day, Blake called. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. "Dana contacted me," he said. "She's hired Patricia Wells." My stomach sank. Patricia Wells. That name was familiar to anyone in the state who'd been through a messy divorce. She had a reputation for going after everything: houses, pensions, retirement accounts, even projected future earnings. A shark in heels. "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means she's not playing around," Blake said. "Wells is already building a narrative that your disappearance after the hospital amounts to desertion. She's painting you as unstable, claiming you left without explanation, and have refused communication since." I let out a slow, tired breath. "So what now?" "Now we get ahead of it. I've already filed for an emergency hearing regarding the funds she withdrew. Judge Harmon is assigned to the case. He's not a fan of people exploiting medical situations. We may catch a break there." After we hung up, I didn't move for a while, just stared at the wall like maybe it could give me answers. Eventually, I called Megan, my niece, Jeff's daughter. Smart as hell, already in her second year of law school. I had something specific I needed her help with. She said yes before I even finished explaining. That evening, I took a slow drive past the house. Dana's car was in the driveway. Right beside it, a sleek black Audi I didn't recognize. I circled the block once without stopping, then headed back to Jeff's. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Patricia Wells. I represent Dana Doyle. Any further surveillance of my client will be documented as harassment. All communication must go through proper legal channels." They were watching me now, and I had been watching them. But this time, it wasn't just a Cold War, it was official. The gloves were off. 2 weeks after that first meeting with Blake, we had our day in court. An emergency hearing to address the money Dana had pulled from our accounts. She walked in with Patricia Wells by her side, both dressed like they were about to take over a boardroom. Sharp suits, heels clicking on the polished floor like they owned the place. I wore the only tie I had, the same one I kept tucked in the back of my truck for last-minute funerals. It felt stiff around my neck, like it knew it didn't belong there. Judge Harmon presided. Older guy, white hair, glasses low on his nose. He reviewed the documents in silence, expression unreadable, occasionally glancing up, first at Dana, then at me. Finally, he spoke. "Ms. Wells," he said, voice calm but direct. "Your client withdrew the entirety of the joint accounts while Mr. Doyle was hospitalized for a life-threatening cardiac event. Is that correct?" Wells stood without hesitation. "Your Honor, my client had full legal access to the joint funds. Furthermore, Mr. Doyle recently refinanced their marital home in his name only, without Mrs. Doyle's knowledge. We contend that was the first act of financial deception." Judge Harmon removed his glasses and looked straight at her. "I'm not asking about the house right now, counselor. I'm asking about the timing of the withdrawals. Was your client aware that Mr. Doyle was in the hospital when she took the money?" Dana leaned in and whispered something to her attorney. Wells cleared her throat. "Yes, Your Honor," she said, "but my client was under significant emotional distress. She believed her marriage was unraveling and acted to protect herself financially." The judge didn't blink. "While he was unconscious? From a heart attack?" He shook his head slightly. "Seems like an unlikely time for Mr. Doyle to decide to walk away from the marriage." He shuffled through some papers before continuing. "I'm ordering the funds frozen. Neither party is permitted to access them until the matter of ownership is settled in the divorce proceedings." It wasn't a full win, but it stopped Dana from draining what little was left, for now at least. Outside the courtroom, she tried to come over to me. I saw it in her eyes, something between panic and guilt. Wells reached out and put a hand on her arm, holding her back, but not before Dana managed to say, "Cameron, please, there's so much you don't understand." I didn't stop walking, didn't turn around, because maybe she was right, but I didn't care anymore. I walked right past her without a glance. Outside the courthouse, Blake looked calm, even a little satisfied. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Now we start discovery." Discovery. The part where both sides have to show their cards. Every account, every asset, every little secret laid bare. A week later, Blake called me into his office. When I arrived, he already had a folder waiting for me on the desk. "We've got something," he said, sliding it across. I opened it. Inside was a bank statement from an account I didn't recognize. Dana's name was on it. The balance? $127,340.56. I stared at the number for a second. Where did this come from? Your niece, Blake said. Megan's internship at the credit union downtown gave her access to some systems. She flagged this. The account was opened about 18 months ago, and get this, regular deposits, always just under $10,000. Just under the federal reporting threshold. That wasn't just sneaky, that was intentional. Hiding money, I said quietly. Blake nodded. Classic pattern. And the timing of those deposits? They line up almost exactly with your long-haul schedule. Every time you were on the road, more money went in. I leaned back in the chair, the folder still open in front of me. She's been planning this, I said. For a year and a half. Blake shook his head. Honestly, I don't think she was planning to leave you. I think she was building a safety net, preparing for if you left her. That hit me sideways. Why would I leave her? I asked. I was out there busting my ass, working myself into the ground, to provide for us. Everything I did was for us. That's when Blake slid over another paper, a credit card statement. Check the hotel charges, he said. It was from a boutique hotel in Minneapolis. Date, 3 months ago. I remember that week. I was in Seattle hauling a load of farm equipment. The reservation wasn't in Dana's name. It was under Harold Jensen. Harold, our neighbor, the same guy who texted me about seeing someone at the house, the one who pretended he had my back. Blake's expression turned grim. We think Harold and Dana have been involved for a while, and he's been feeding you misinformation, throwing you off the scent while they were together behind your back. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. All the quiet dinners, all the short texts, the way she stopped asking when I'd be home. I hadn't just missed the signs. I'd been lied to actively by two people I thought I could trust. I didn't say anything for a while, just stared at the paper in front of me and tried to remember how to breathe. The betrayal didn't just come from Dana. That would have been enough on its own, but no. It was deeper than that. It was coordinated, planned. Harold, the neighbor who acted like he was checking in, like he was concerned about me. He was sleeping with my wife. And Dana? She was draining our accounts while I was unconscious in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines keeping my heart going. I stood up from Blake's desk. What's our next move? For the first time that day, Blake smiled. Not smug, just focused. That's up to you. But if I were in your shoes, I'd make damn sure they both regret ever thinking they could get away with this. And that's exactly what I intended to do. The next month passed with me still camped out at Jeff's place. My body was healing slowly, my mind less so. But we had a strategy now. Blake was building our case piece by piece. Every document, every transaction, every shadowy corner of Dana's financial life. My niece Megan was key to all of it. Her internship at the credit union wasn't giving us anything illegal. Just access to patterns, to timelines, to dots that were hiding in plain sight. One night, while she was going through a spreadsheet, she looked up. There's someone else with access to that hidden account, she said. Not a joint owner, but an authorized user. Harold, I said. She nodded. And there's something else. They've started moving money, smaller amounts, to other accounts. Like they're spreading it around. I stared out the living room window at Jeff's backyard, thinking. They're liquidating, getting ready to run. That night, I called Blake. We need to move faster. I agree, he said. But we have to be careful. If we show our hand too early, they'll vanish with everything. So what do? He was quiet for a moment. We need leverage, something that makes them stop and think twice before trying to disappear. The next day, I drove to the house. Dana would be at work. I wasn't going inside. I didn't want to be in that space. Not yet. Instead, I walked the perimeter of the property, phone in hand, snapping photos of everything. The new shed Harold helped build last summer, the expensive landscaping that had magically appeared while I was hauling cargo through California for 3 weeks. All of it, paid for with my money, all of it, added value to the home that, thanks to the refinancing, was solely in my name. I sent the photos to Blake with a simple caption, documented. 2 days later, Blake got a call from Dana's lawyer. Out of nowhere, they made an offer. Dana would return half of the money she withdrew. In exchange, she wanted 50% equity in the house. When Blake called to tell me, his voice was sharp. They're testing us, seeing if we'll settle cheap. They know we're close. What do we tell them? I asked. Nothing yet, he said. Let them sweat. In the middle of all that, I made another move, a quiet one. I reached out to the HR department at my trucking company and explained everything. My medical leave, the heart issue, the mess I was caught in. Then I asked about the disability insurance I'd been paying into every paycheck for the last 20 years. You're entitled to 60% of your salary for up to 12 months, the HR rep told me. Given your cardiac event and your doctor's restrictions, you qualify without issue. That same day, I filed the paperwork. Another source of income, steady, reliable, and best of all, it was completely outside the scope of the divorce proceedings. Dana didn't know about it, and it wouldn't show up in any of the settlement talks. Not yet. The following week, Jeff and I drove past the house again. At first glance, everything looked the same, but then I saw it. A for sale sign in Harold's front yard. He's cutting and running, Jeff muttered from the driver's seat. I nodded, eyes locked on the sign. Call Megan. An hour later, Megan confirmed what we suspected. Harold had cleaned out his bank accounts 2 days prior, nearly $90,000, all withdrawn via cashier's checks, liquid and untraceable. I called Blake right away. He's selling his house. He's getting ready to disappear. And I think Dana's going with him. Blake didn't even pause. I'll file for an emergency injunction first thing in the morning. Freeze all assets, block any property sales without the court's permission. The next morning, I was getting dressed when my phone buzzed. Dana, we need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers. I showed it to Jeff. They're panicking, he said. Good, I replied. I forwarded the message to Blake, who messaged back almost instantly. Don't respond. Injunction hearing is at 2 p.m. At 1:30 that afternoon, I pulled into the courthouse lot, adjusting my tie in the mirror. That's when I saw them, Dana and Harold, together, standing near his car, deep in what looked like a heated argument. They didn't see me, but I watched them for a moment before pulling out my phone and hitting record. Just 30 seconds of shaky footage from across the lot, but it was enough. Their body language said everything. Too close, too familiar, too obviously not just neighbors. Inside, Blake was already waiting outside Judge Harmon's chambers. I handed him the phone. Take a look. He watched the video with narrowed eyes, then gave a slow nod. Perfect timing. Judge Harmon's already in a bad mood today. I straightened my tie again and exhaled. Then let's not keep him waiting. The judge's chambers were smaller than the courtroom, more intimate, more intense. Just the judge, the two lawyers, Dana and me. Harold wasn't allowed inside. He wasn't a party to the divorce, at least not officially. Judge Harmon looked tired but alert as we settled in. Blake started with the video. It played on the judge's desktop. No sound. Just Dana and Harold in that parking lot. Clearly arguing, clearly something more than friendly neighbors. When it ended, the room was silent. Mrs. Wells, Judge Harmon said, folding his hands in front of him, would you care to explain why your client has stated, under oath, that she has no personal relationship with this neighbor, when video evidence now clearly suggests otherwise? Patricia Wells, always so composed, suddenly looked rattled. Your Honor, she began, the nature of their relationship is irrelevant to the financial matters at hand. But the judge was already shaking his head. And in that moment, I knew we were turning the tide. It is when financial fraud is being alleged, the judge said, his tone firm as he turned to Dana. Mrs. Doyle, are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Jensen? Dana's face drained of color. I don't... The judge didn't wait for her to finish. Let me rephrase. The court has evidence that you and Mr. Jensen have been moving substantial sums of money, that Mr. Jensen is selling his property, and that you withdrew funds from joint accounts while your husband was incapacitated. This suggests a pattern of deception and intent to flee. He turned to both lawyers. I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all assets belonging to both Dana Doyle and Harold Jensen. Neither may leave the county without court permission. Additionally, the judge paused to look at me, his expression hardening. Given Mr. Doyle's medical condition and the evidence of financial exploitation during his incapacity, I'm granting temporary exclusive use of the marital home to Mr. Doyle. Dana made a small, choked sound, and Patricia Wells immediately tried to interject, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. The exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse is something this court takes very seriously, counselor. You're lucky I'm not recommending criminal charges at this time. Blake kept his expression neutral, but I could tell he was pleased. As we left the courthouse, Dana looked at me for the first time, and I saw something there. Fear. But not fear of me. Fear of the consequences. 3 months after I'd been discharged from the hospital, I moved back into our house. My house now. The divorce was finalized quicker than anyone had predicted. Dana didn't put up a fight after the injunction hearing. Harold had disappeared, leaving her to handle everything alone. In the end, the judge awarded me the house, my truck, and 80% of our savings. Dana got her car and the remaining 20%. The secret account was split 50-50, but only after Dana used her share to pay my legal fees. I never spoke to her directly again. Everything went through the lawyers. The last I heard, she had moved to Minneapolis, starting over. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many memories. Bought a smaller place closer to Jeff and Megan. I even used some of the money to help Megan with law school. She's going to make a hell of an attorney someday. I don't drive long haul anymore. My heart can't take the stress. The doctor says it's too risky. I found work dispatching instead, which lets me be home every night. It's quieter than the open road, but there's something to be said for stability. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry about what happened. I'm not. Not anymore. You can't control what others do. You can only control how you respond. Dana thought she was taking everything from me that day in the hospital, but in the end, she forced me to fight for myself in a way I never had before. Last week, I was cleaning out some old boxes and found our wedding album. I thought about throwing it away, but then I didn't. I just put it back in the box. It's part of my story now. Not the end. Just a chapter. The heart attack nearly killed me. The betrayal nearly broke me, but I'm still here. Maybe stronger. Definitely some lessons you learn the hard way. Some people you lose for good reason, and sometimes the life you rebuild is better than the one you lost.